What's going on, guys? This is the PG Era podcast right here on YouTube. We've got a fun show for you today where we're covering the first Money in the Bank pay-per-view event, which we'll get to in a minute. But man, it feels great that, and I speak for Kyle, I believe, that YouTube themselves renewed our show for a sequel. I'm very happy about that. But before we get into the show, I need to introduce my trusty steed of a co-host. It's Kyle. What's going on? How are you on this fine night, Kyle?
Yes, we're excited today to talk about Money in the Bank 2010, where it all began for the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. 2 weeks ago we talked about SummerSlam 2008. So fast forwarding up a couple years now to talk about Money in the Bank. And I really, feel like Joe is in agreement with me on this one, that Money in the Bank was a pay-per-view that really defined the PG era. It was, one of the pinnacles. Not a big four pay-per-view, but it's certainly, I think, right there. I mean, I think it's something that we look forward to every year. We just got past this year's Money in the Bank, so we're looking at 11 years, 10 years earlier. And it's hard to believe that the Money in the Bank pay-per-view has been around, over a decade. I mean, the Money in the Bank match itself, 15 years of Money in the Bank matches back to 2005. It's just an epic match, arguably the greatest creation in WWE history. I think it's right up there with the Royal Rumble, the Elimination Chamber, the TLC, all that fun stuff. So we're going to discuss it all today.
Yeah, absolutely. And we cannot continue without addressing, obviously, the last time we were here for our first episode, I had awful audio problems that were an absolute pain to discover, after we filmed. While we were filming, we were constantly stopping and realizing we had problems. But I didn't know they were that bad. And it was awful we had to put it back out. We were not about to re-record that long episode. But we've tested it out. Hopefully it's better this time around. So hopefully that issue is in the past. But we shall see. We understand that, that those audio problems were in fact probably worse than Bobby Lashley singing Rockin' Robin on Monday Night Raw. And by the way, if you're not interested in the rest of the video, we invite you to stick around anyway, because at the end, Kyle and I will be doing a very special edition of the Don't Rush Challenge. Okay, so kidding aside, last week was a long episode, or last episode, whenever it was, going a little bit over an hour, but a lot of that had to do with our discussion of how the PG era began. Now that we have kind of established that story, we can kind of move forward and discuss just some noteworthy pieces of news around the time frame of the shows we cover. Hopefully that makes these pay-per-view episodes, not as long, but no promises. And that's another thing I want to touch on last episode, where pay-per-views aren't the only thing that we're going to be covering. And now we have a little bit of a structure of the order of what pay-per-views we're going to cover on the show. And I'm going to hand it over to Kyle. I'm going to let him explain sort of off the top of his head. We've discussed what our plans are of, going forward, the order of pay-per-views we're going in, as well as the other types of topics we're going to be covering going forward. Take it away, Kyle.
Yeah, I think I pretty much get this right into where me and Joe, we want to discuss pay-per-views among any year. We don't want to stick exclusively to 2008 to 2009 to 2010. You get the gist. We want to be able to go around to pay-per-views different years. For example, 2 weeks ago, you guys saw us do SummerSlam 2008. All of a sudden, we're doing Money in the Bank 2010. There might be some people that say, why are you guys skipping ahead 2 years? And there might be other people saying, man, I'm happy that they're doing this. We don't want to stick to an exclusive year because we don't want people to continue to stick around with the same feuds. We talk about SummerSlam 2008. The following pay-per-view could have 3 of the same matches. We're sticking around to the same feud. Or, we want to be able to make it as diverse as possible while still sticking with our right time frame of years. We want to still be able to stick in 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, and then some of 2014. And then anything beyond that is fine. It's still PG. But obviously, the first 5 or 6 years is what we're sticking for. And also, like Joe said, pay-per-views aren't the only thing. We are 100% down for episodes of Raw, SmackDown, and ECW. Even getting into some NXT is fine, something that began in 2010. But for sure, we're definitely looking at exclusive episodes of that. And then along with that, something that I had brought up is maybe just talking about a few specific wrestlers or feuds that began in the PG era. We could discuss superstars that retired in the PG era, superstars that debuted in the PG era, factions, tag teams, feuds. I mean, it goes, it's always one thing that I learned about professional wrestling is that it never gets old to talk about. There's always new topics to talk about. There's always new things to talk about. And there's always, like for a superstar spotlight, if you want to call it that, we're never going to run out of superstars. There is, countless amount that we can talk about within the period. But for sure, pay-per-views, I think, are the priority for me and Joe at first. We definitely want to establish that we know how to break down an entire pay-per-view, that we know what we're doing here, that you guys know that we know what the PG era is all about. But, as we hopefully grow and build as a channel here, we hope to be able to talk about different topics. We hope that you guys can go down into the comments and, say that type of stuff. Hey, I want to know about, John Cena versus Randy Orton. I want to learn a little bit more about that feud in the PG era, just for an example. Hey, I want to learn more about Extreme Rules, what happened at those pay-per-views. I want to learn more about Shawn Michaels' retirement. There's so many different things. I want the Undertaker-Shawn Michaels feud, the Triple H-Shawn Michaels or Undertaker feud. There's so much stuff to talk about, and we don't want to be the ones coming up with all the ideas. Me and Joe don't want to have to, talk about what we want to talk about. We want to talk about what everybody else wants to talk about, because honestly, I don't mind talking about anything. I will never get bored talking about anything, because the PG era, in my opinion, was a great era, is a great era. There's obviously some lows, and we're going to sit there here and critique all that, but there's definitely a lot of highs. So, please, we can't express it enough. Go on Twitter, go on here on YouTube, and just let us know. I mean, we both have Twitters. I'm back on Twitter. Joe has his at PG Era Pod, and then I have at Kyle Smith. I think it's WWE at Kyle Smith WWE on Twitter. Please tweet at us, send us private messages, whatever you have to do. All that stuff will be in the description too. It sounds like I'm ending the video here, but there's still so much more to come today. But pretty much what I'm trying to say is, please let us know what you want us to talk about. And even if there's something you want us to talk about maybe before the PG or right before it started, we'll be open to that. But we're mainly sticking to 2008 through about 2014 and even beyond 2014. But we're definitely here to talk about anything. So I think I pretty much made that clear, Joe.
I think you have. I really think you might have missed a few. No, I'm just kidding. No, you got it all. And definitely. All those ideas we're definitely looking forward to getting to eventually. We're starting off pay-per-views here first 2 weeks. We'll see what we do next. We don't know yet. We'll discuss it, and maybe we'll do our first Superstar episode next. Who knows? We'll figure it out, talk about it, and move forward. And another thing I want to note, when you're talking about doing just episodes of Raw, SmackDown, ECW, NXT, those are something that I had suggested, was doing those as watch-along episodes. Since those ones aren't as important of matches and stuff, they're I like the concept of watch-alongs where you play us while you play whatever episode of the network. That's something that I want to do. We'll see what happens, though, and see what you all want, and most importantly, what we want. Okay. So we're going to move forward here, and we're already going to be starting to cover not the pay-per-view yet, but we're here like in this time frame talking about stuff. So let's get into some the business stuff, some attendance and ratings comparisons, like we did last time, which I thought was a decent addition. So we're not just talking about the show. And I'll try to run down this quick. The average attendance in WWE at this time in July of 2010, it was almost 5,400. Of course, this, I believe, does not count pay-per-views. It would be probably more with Money in the Bank, but yeah. And this is actually down compared to the average attendance in July of 2009, which was sitting at almost 63,000. So that's almost down by 1,000. But we're going to move back to 6,300 was the average
You had said
in July 2000.
So I was just making sure.
Huh?
You said 63,000, just to let you know.
That's what I meant. No, 6,300, not 63,000. That would be incredible. But no, they're down by nearly 1,000 there, not 63,000. The average Raw viewership, which is what we did last week as well. The average Raw viewership at this time in July of 2010 was about 4.74 million viewers. This is down, once again, down here, business, from the average the year prior, which was at about 5.38. So a decent drop here in both attendance and viewership. Obviously, we do not work for WWE. We never have. We don't really know what could have gone into that. But Kyle, do you have any comments on why business might be down? I mean, is there anything that you can think of this time?
Not really. I don't think it's a huge drop off, to tell you the truth. I mean, compared to today, yeah. But I mean, I don't think compared to them couple years, I don't think that there was, at least not a concern for me. I mean, it's slight, but it's still good. You know, it's like just saying, like, you know, if a movie came out in 2006 and it made $100 million at the box office, at a sequel they only made $90 million. I mean, it's not horrendous, but it's, I don't know. I don't look at. I'm not a big rating number type guy. I don't really think it matters as much. I mean, maybe in 2010 it did, but I don't think of a big concern here. I think that it's still very, very good. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and I actually do like, and that was good off the top of your head talking about movies and the sequel. That's actually not a bad kind of comparison. I actually like that. Good job, Kyle. That's why we keep you here. Moving on, this is something that I was hoping to add to the episode, which was something about news from this time, which I really want to cover when we do these pay-per-view episodes. But I could not find really anything of note to really talk about here. But like I said, in the future, I hope to have just some maybe weird news to talk about just for fun. But there's none that I can really find here. So with that, it's just time to get to the ECW main event. Just kidding. Because I'm still not over that from our SummerSlam episode from our last episode. Which, if, by the way, if once you're done watching this episode, if you even make it, we invite you to go watch that one for the hell of it, please, even though my audio was horrendous. All right, knuckleheads, it's time to talk about Money in the Bank 2010. It took place July 18th in Kansas City, Missouri at the Sprint Center. The attendance for the show was about 8,000. Like, the number I saw was 8,000 on the dot, which I don't think can be real. But the pay-per-view buy rate, the one I was saying here, was about 169,000, not 100. So take with that what you will. Now let's get to the matches. In the dark match prior to Money in the Bank, saw, just for the hell of it, I thought this was fun, Santino Marella defeated William Regal in about 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Which you can take with that information whatever it is you want. Like, he beat William Regal in a little over 4 minutes. Wow. We get a super quick opening package to the show showing the history of Money in the Bank. Just pretty much selling to us how important the Money in the Bank match is to the wrestlers' careers. There was really nothing special about it. It was just basic showing the history. So we're not really going to discuss that further. We're going to move to the actual show here. We start off hot with the first of 2 Money in the Bank ladder matches of the evening. This one's for the SmackDown brand's Money in the Bank match. And I'm going to read out the participants here, just so if you haven't watched the show, you have an idea of what you missed. First, we see Boom, Boom, Boom. It's Intercontinental Champion Kofi Kingston. He's still Jamaican. And actually, that's something I noted was this is the first two shows we cover, he's the IC champ coming in, which is pretty neat. We also have I Am Perfection, Dolph Ziggler. Captain Charisma Christian, Dashing Cody Rhodes. And he does, something I noted during this was he does the whole mirror on the lower LED board thing, and it shows up on the Titantron. I totally forgot he did that. Wow, it's been 10 years. And then after that, we have Matt Hardy, who comes out to a huge pop. Young, slim, white attire Drew McIntyre. Once again, there's so many names in this match 10 years later who are all doing completely different things. And a favorite here on the show, Kane, was in the match. And lastly, Paul White. That's 8 men for you keeping count at home, which is just a ton of meat in one match. This match saw Kane grab the briefcase after fending off McIntyre about 26 minutes in. Kane got a huge pop, which is something I know when he got the contract, and he summons his fire afterward. Classic stuff. Meltzer would give this match 4 stars. I thought it was a typical Money in the Bank match, and that's a compliment. They're always fun to watch, and you get some fun spots in there. We saw Kingston come off the ladder, the boom drop. Paul White brought out his big special gold ladder, and he struggled to bring it in, which I just thought was amazing. And Christian and Matt Hardy fought each other off the ladder, which just scared me shitless. And at one point, Matt Stryker on commentary, who we've been talking about lately, at one point calls Kane Big Red Justice, which I just thought was the most random comment. What did you think about this SmackDown Money in the Bank ladder match, Kyle? Kicked off the show.
Yeah, I think it was a great opener. I mean, what other way to open up the Money in the Bank ladder match or Money in the Bank pay-per-view than with the Money in the Bank ladder match? I think it's absolutely fitting. I think that it makes sense because it's a Money in the Bank pay-per-view. It's a SmackDown for the World Heavyweight Championship contract. 8 amazing superstars. I mean, you get your high flyers like Kofi Kingston, Christian, Cody Rhodes, Dolph Ziggler, and then you get your athleticism with Drew McIntyre and Matt Hardy. And then you get the big men, Matt Kane and the Big Show, of course, Paul White, as you said, his real name. But fantastic stuff, I think. Captain Insano, we also know Big Show by. But who gets that reference? Come on. Regardless, needless to say, though, what a match. I think that you're right. I think that it was just like a typical Money in the Bank ladder match. And that is not, like you said, that is not an insult. Typical Money in the Bank ladder match means that it is amazing. WWE has always done a fantastic job with Money in the Banks. And even in 2010, Money in the Bank wasn't exactly the most established match at the time. I mean, it had only been around for about 5 or 6 years at this point. It wasn't like, it's not like now, 15 years. So they were still creating new things. I think that the Christian and Matt Hardy moment brought back a lot of nostalgia to me, to a lot of fans growing up, of course, with the E and C versus the Hardys versus the Dudleys, so seeing those two. And then Kane ultimately becoming the winner here. Of course, Kane at the time was feuding with not really anybody. He had the big issue with The Undertaker's attacker. He was searching for many guys. He thought it might have been Jack Swagger, Rey Mysterio. We'll talk about those two in a little bit. And then Kane was a weird winner at the time. I mean, we hadn't really seen too many World Heavyweight Championship reigns or WWE title reigns from Kane. If I'm not mistaken, going into 2010, I believe Kane had only been WWE champion one time, and that was back in, I believe,
98 or 9. It was one of them.
Only
And he only
champion
had it for a day.
one day. I
And he
mean,
only had it for a day, yeah.
yep, he immediately lost it to Stone Cold. So Kane was never a main eventer. I mean, at least at this time, he had been a staple made in WWE. He was there for 14 years. He was a veteran. But when he won the Money in the Bank, I'm sure a lot of people were surprised. If I'm not mistaken, all 8 of these superstars, besides Kane and the Big Show, were not world champions. So, I mean, Kofi Kingston had not been WWE champion yet. Christian had not been world champion yet. Cody Rhodes was never a world champion. Dolph Ziggler was not world champion yet. Matt Hardy was only ECW champion. And Drew McIntyre was, of course, not WWE champion yet. Big Show had been WWE champion a couple times, as we said, Kane. So, as well. So none of these superstars had been a main eventer for a long period of time, with the exception, I would say, Kane and Big Show. So I think this was cool. I think SmackDown really had a solid show at the time for sure, and a solid roster. And this was a great match. I mean, I can't express that more. And Kane winning was cool. I mean, I guess back in 2010, I wouldn't mind. Kane was kind of a face. He was kind of more of a tweener at the moment in time, and I think, like you said, the fans popped for it, and you know, he did not get a chorus of boos. I think if maybe Dolph Ziggler would have won, he would have gotten a chorus of boos. So I don't know, but it was cool. It was a lot of fun nonetheless. I would probably give it about 4 stars as well. I think that's where I was at. It's hard to give a Money in the Bank ladder match 5 stars. It just doesn't feel like the type of match to give 5 stars, no matter how good it is, unless it's really over the top. So I would give this about a 4-star rating. I think that he got it right. Dave, Dirty Dave. Or
Dirty
Uncle
Dave. Uncle. Yes, I get the reference. Up next, we see an almost timid voice of Impact Wrestling, Josh Matthews. He's backstage interviewing WWE Champion Sheamus ahead of his match in the main event, which we'll see later on against John Cena in a steel cage. Sheamus won the title after the Nexus interfered in the title match the month prior at Fatal 4-Way. Yeah. He's a heel at this point. God damn. But he talks about the Nexus and how he has chosen his side of the fight between Nexus and the rest of the Raw roster. He ends his promo by saying he's going to give Cena a bigger beating than the Nexus could give him. Wow. And then next up, we've got some smart, sexy, and powerful action from the WWE Divas. We've got Alicia Fox defending her Divas title against Eve Torres, blast from the past here. Fox pinned Eve after hitting, I guess it was a scissor kick, I couldn't tell what that was, to retain her title at just under 6 minutes. This match was what it was, 2010 Divas. Meltzer gave it 3/4 of a star. That was being very generous. But, of course, this was a different time. Divas action on the card. What did you think of this match, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy to look at. 2010, the women's division did not exactly was not on the right track in 2010. I mean, I think it might have been slightly better than 2008. We do have 2 matches on the card. We had 2 championships at the moment, which actually this might have been the last pay-per-view that we saw the women's and Divas championship both being defended. I think it would have ended up getting unified in a couple of months or whatever. But yeah, it was what it was. I mean, I definitely do want to dig into more of this. This is not exactly the time or the pay-per-view to be talking about what was the issue with the women's division back in 2010. I mean, to be fair, but I think both are talented. I think Alicia Fox is very, very good. I think that she's criminally underrated. I don't think that she ever really got a big opportunity in the post 2014 women's revolution. She never really was, got a prominent storyline. Same situation with Eve. I mean, when you're given a 5.5 championship match, what are you really supposed to do? I would be more generous with a 1/4 of a star rating. I would maybe give it like 2 stars, 1.5 stars. There was a couple cool moments. The ending was tainted. It was whatever, but this is not the type of video that we should be criticizing this. I mean, I definitely want to get into more of that but the PG era was not a good time for women's wrestling. And, it kind of sucks just because of the talent. I don't think the talent was exactly bad. I don't think that Alicia Fox is a bad performer. I don't think that Eve Torres is a bad performer. I think the issue was that they were given 5 matches for a championship match on a pay-per-view. You don't, it's like them telling Sheamus and John Cena, hey, you guys have 5 minutes in a steel cage. Go ahead and steal the show. Now, to be fair, Eve Torres and Alicia Fox, they weren't in the main event, but it was for a championship. And I won't, go on about this in the next women's match. I'll just simply give my rating of what I thought of the match. But I still believe 10 years ago that it was way too disrespected. I think that the talent was way too good. And I just believe that we should have gotten a women's revolution or evolution, whatever what you want to call it, earlier. But oh well, we can't go back in time and change it. We just have to appreciate that we actually do have a very, very good women's division in 2020. So, but whatever match, 3 stars. I mean, three quarters of a star is fine. So let's just move on here and keep it rolling.
Yeah, and mind you, this was coming from Dave Meltzer. If this was been in the Tokyo Dome, Lord knows how many stars that would be. All right, up next, we see a replay from SmackDown a few nights prior where Kane's investigating who attacked his brother, The Undertaker, which you mentioned earlier, which I'm glad you did. Kane's interrogating Swagger and Jack Swagger, that is, and would eventually tombstone pile drive Swagger's father after he was left alone by Swagger in the ring. Damn it. We cut to Big Jack, backstage, who's on the phone with his mother. Now, this was this was a highlight of the show for me. He yells at his mother to shut up, and then he proceeds to pretty much cut a promo on her about how he's going to get back his World Heavyweight Championship. It was funny stuff. Yeah. Did he just tell his mom to shut up? That was my Lawler. Up next, we get an insane throwback, which completely threw me off. We see the Usos come out for some action with Tamina as their valet, with their generic entrance music, which I swear used to play in commercials back in the day. I need somebody to find that for me at PG Era Pod, please. That would be swell. They're, of course, taking on the Hart Dynasty, Tyson Kidd and David Hart Smith, who are accompanied by Natalya, and they're defending their unified tag team titles. Fun fact, before we get into the match itself and finish to it, fun fact here on the show, Kyle once went to a WWE house show around this time, and he paid his hard-earned money just to see the Hart Dynasty. Fun fact for the show. At one point, Michael Cole says that Jimmy and Jay are the future of the tag division, and boy, was he right in that statement, as they're one of the best tag teams of this generation. 10 years later, they are one of the best, if not the best. Obviously, one's out for injury right now, but still, they have had tremendous careers, which we could talk about their evolution at some point. Who knows? But yes, he was right about this. And David Hart Smith would go on to apply the sharpshooter just under 6 minutes again to retain the belts. So we got another title match. It was pretty much the same time as the Divas match. Quick match. Standard tag team match to me. Nothing really special. This match would earn 2 3/4 stars. And I find that interesting. It was about the same time, and it has 2 more stars than the Divas match. But still, it was a quick standard, nothing too exciting to me. What say you, Kyle? What did you think about the tag team title match? Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with a lot what you said about the Usos for sure. I mean, looking at the Usos, they had actually only been in WWE for a couple of months on the main roster. They debuted, I believe, in May of 2010, and this was in July. So they had only been around, or June or July. They had only been around for about a month or two. And Yeah, for sure. Whoever called, I don't know if he said Matt Stryker, but that they were a future of the tag team division. I mean, that is a point that is right on the head. I mean, we know all these people say, oh, they're the future. With saying that the Usos were the future of the tag division in 2010, at this point, that's an understatement. I mean, 10 years later, they've won multiple tag team championships. They've had multiple great feuds. They've, great, amazing rivalry with the New Day. And even in 2020, they are still doing very, very well. Outside of some injuries and some legal issues, they are still 100%, future Hall of Famers, a great tag team, and they have definitely carried on the legacy of their family, for sure. But anyways, talking about the match, at the time, the unified tag team titles were actually very, very well showcased on WWE programming. D-Generation X had held the unified tag team championship. The Miz and the Big Show, Chris Jericho and the Big Show, Chris Jericho and Edge. I mean, there had been the Legacy. There had been a lot of different tag teams in 2008, 2009, now 2010 that held it. So this kind of felt like a step back a little bit towards the tag division, I guess, being on a fairly prominent pay-per-view, and only having a 5.5-minute match between two tag teams that, well, the Usos at least weren't really established. The Hart Dynasty were. It was okay. It's not memorable. I don't think it's going to exactly go down into Usos highlight reel. I don't think any part of this career, this moment in their career, their first couple of years, are going to go down their highlight reel. They, like you said, they were very, very generic. They had generic music. Their wrestling ability was generic, but at the same time, we saw many, foreshadowing moments that were going to make them a fantastic tag team in the next couple of years. But this match definitely didn't showcase either team. It's probably about a star to me, maybe a star and a half. Just typical tag team action. But I do believe that, like I was saying, that the tag team division was very, very prominent in 2010 and even earlier. So that fact that I think maybe at this time it was starting to get a little bit, on the downside, but I think the Hart Dynasty were a great tag team. They're actually, like you said, they were one of my favorite tag teams around this time. I believe that was a year prior to this that I had taken a sign to a live show. It was in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. This show, I believe it was in 2009 or maybe even 2008. Chris Jericho was World Heavyweight Champion. Drew McIntyre was Intercontinental Champion. This show must have been 2009, and the main event was CM Punk versus The Undertaker, and I believe it was when CM Punk was a part of Straight Edge Society. So that's the throwback stuff in the PG during the PG era right there. But nonetheless, the match is what it was. So let's continue.
Absolutely. Great stuff. Moving on, we've got some more great stuff. We've got the World Heavyweight Championship on the line. It's Rey Mysterio, who's champion, defending against the man who yelled at his mother earlier on the show, Jack Swagger. He's from Oklahoma, who Mysterio beat for the title the month prior at Fatal 4-Way. Yes, that pay-per-view happened. And he beat, Swagger, who was the champion, along with, who else was in the match? It was a masked, bald CM Punk, and also Paul White.
Paul White.
What's funny about that? I actually completely forgot that there was, in fact, a Money in the Bank ladder match at WrestleMania that year, at Mania 26. I forgot because I figured they just took it out of Mania and made it into the pay-per-view. So I never even remembered that match happened. It just got lost in memory. But Swagger had won it, just to give you some background here, at Mania, and cashed it on Chris Jericho, who you just mentioned was champion at that house show you went to. He beat him for the title the next SmackDown, so it was quick. Anywho, this was Mysterio's second reign as champion going into this match, and this plays a lot into the match we would see. Mysterio is selling a leg injury sustained from Swagger, leading up to this match on SmackDown. Keep in mind, Kyle, Mysterio's had surgery 5 times on his left knee. I don't even know if I said that right. Yes, he had surgery 5 times in his left knee. This match would end with Mysterio retaining the title. He rolled up Swagger for the pinfall victory after Swagger had gone for the ankle lock. The finish was interesting, though. It was a roll-up, but it was after Mysterio had done a classic spot that Eddie Guerrero had done, I believe, against Kurt Angle, was the main one he did it against, where he had, throughout the match, I guess, loosened his boot in preparation for the ankle lock. And so when Swagger went for it, the boot comes off, and he's thrown off, and he's able to roll him up for the pin, which I just thought was a classic, good homage to Guerrero. This match goes a little under 11 minutes. I thought it was kind of fun and exciting, with some good spots. Saw a crazy good spot that got popped me. It was Mysterio reversed Swagger's attempt off the top rope into a great DDT. Mysterio is a great babyface, has always been, and Swagger has always been a tremendous heat-seeking heel. I thought there was good storytelling throughout. But after the match, Swagger attacked Ray. Out comes Kane to make the save to fight off his current rival. They go to the back fighting, because it's like a theater. They go to the back fighting, and everybody's like, oh, they're gone. I always love that. Next thing you know, Kane's music hits. So the man who was just out here now has the music treatment. And he's bringing his Money in the Bank briefcase, which he just won. He cashes it in. Next thing you know, he hits the choke slam tombstone. He's the World Heavyweight Champion, just like that. Crazy good post-match. If you were wondering what the post-match was for, it was for that. We thought we saw the last of Kane, then bam, he cashes in his Money in the Bank, becoming the champ the same night, which this was the first time ever. It's happened a bunch of times since. This was the original. Meltzer says the original match, Swagger and Mysterio, is worthy of 4 stars, which I kind of agree with. I thought it was a pretty good match. I'll hand it over to Kyle. I've been talking a while. What did you think about the original match? Maybe talk about the post-match, because you love the post-match.
Well, you were surprised there that Kane and Jack Swagger and Rey Mysterio was given 4 stars, but I heard that Kane and Rey Mysterio, that match was given 5. So a 10-second. But anyway, yeah, you definitely did cover a lot there, which is great. Pretty much after WrestleMania, Jack Swagger, of course, won the Money in the Bank. I'll just talk a little bit more about some stuff here that really, some opinions more or less. Swagger won the World Heavyweight Championship, 6 days afterwards, or 5 days rather, on Friday Night SmackDown and cashed in Chris Jericho, who of course had his program with Edge at the time. Jack Swagger would go on to have only one successful title defense in this. I believe a defeat of Randy Orton at the May pay-per-view of Extreme Rules, going on to Fatal 4-Way in June and losing. And it's kind of crazy that, you're talking about how good this match was and how it was 4 stars, and Swagger did a great job as a heel. Really, Jack Swagger is viewed as one of the worst World Heavyweight Champions of all time by a lot of people, and I'm really in disagreement of a lot. I don't believe Jack Swagger was a bad World Heavyweight Champion. I don't think he was giving a lot of opportunity with the belt. I think that it was 2010. Jack Swagger had really only been in WWE for about a year and a half or so. He had an ECW championship reign. He was on the main roster a little bit. Not a lot had happened, and then they immediately make him a World Heavyweight Champion on SmackDown. And, at the same time, I don't blame Swagger for accepting the role. I mean, you're given a World Heavyweight Championship opportunity and able to become the world champion. Of course, you're going to embark on it. I just don't believe Jack Swagger was necessarily given enough to prove. I don't think that he was giving enough prominent championship matches. I don't think that he was ever really put in the main event. And really around 2010, the World Heavyweight Championship was not viewed as a main event title. It probably had not main evented a pay-per-view since, the 2008, 2009 days when Edge, Undertaker, them guys were feuding for it. So, I mean, he had faced Jack Swagger at the May pay-per-view of Extreme Rules. He faced Randy Orton at the May pay-per-view of Extreme Rules. It was an okay match, but at the same time, it's not a main event match. The Fatal 4-Way was not a main event. So how can you be a World Heavyweight Champion? I compare his first world title reign, his only world heavyweight championship reign, to CM Punk's first world heavyweight championship reign we talked about a couple years prior when he faced JBL at SummerSlam. So, that's just a little bit about swagger there. This match I thought was good. Rey as the World Heavyweight Champion was proving that he was just a transitional champion at this point to put the title on Kane. And I think Rey was a perfect guy for this. He's a babyface that you're going to seek sympathy for. I think that, like you said, he had an injury going into the match. That was a part that was proven throughout the match. He sold it very, very well. And then he ultimately won on a roll-up pin out of nowhere, which is, typical Rey Mysterio fashion. He's a baby face. He can, get a sneaky win against a bigger guy. Nothing wrong with that at all. Like you said, Kane comes out. But really, I think the big story of this match that everybody remembers is Kane's cash-in. This had been the first time, like you said, that the Money in the Bank winner had cashed in the same night to win the championship, which was fantastic. Kane did a very, very heel maneuver here. He was already a tweener, so to come out here and do that was like, whoa, that's not very PG of Kane right there. To come out there and tombstone Rey Mysterio and beat him for the world title, not very PG. Who said that? That's not PG. I forgot. That's somebody's phrase, but nonetheless, congratulations to Kane back in 2010 with his first World Heavyweight Championship reign. He had been WWE Champion. We talked about that, but that's great. I think it was a good match. I think that 11 minutes. What the hell can you do with 11 minutes? But I think it was mostly swagger dominating. Like you said, a couple cool moments, but then the whole post match was cool. It was a lot of different things going on. I mean, I think watching 10 years ago, you probably thought it was obvious. Rey Mysterio had a knee issue. Kane goes into the bag and all. Like you said, he gets his entrance music played when he was already out there. So he got the entrance. Like, I think it would have made more sense for the first time. Like, oh, we're surprised Kane's here. The second time, he comes out like, that's just funny to me. I guess it's showing that he's in now. Like, I'm coming out to get you. He did come out and he beat Rey. Rey was like, not King. And he tombstone. I really hope we could talk more about 2010 because, no spoilers here or whatever. But let's just say that after this cash in from Kane, this I think was probably Kane's best couple months of his career, or in the best moments. I mean, the next couple months he goes on to really do a lot of good things, especially with the Undertaker. But we'll talk all about that in future videos. Let's just continue to move on and talk about our next match.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we do, I just want to say, it's great hearing about Kane in 2020, talking about 10 years later, from Paul Bearer himself. All right. We're going to move on now. I just went over Kyle's head. Oh, yes. All right, next we go to the back where Edge and Le Champion, Chris Jericho, are going back and forth. They're in the Raw Money in the Bank match that will be later on tonight. They're going back and forth about who will win later on. Nothing to note here. Basic stuff. Next, we've got the Women's Championship on the line where Kelly Kelly, who's accompanied by Tiffany, who I did not even recognize for a while until I happened to hear them say Tiffany. I was like, oh. Well, anyway, Kelly Squared is challenging Layla, who is co-champion with Michelle McCool, hashtag Undertaker's wife. Laycool were like running the women's division at this time. I know they had their big feud with Mickie James at one point, who they call Piggy James. Not sure when that was, but memorable stuff. At any rate, there was kind of a botched spot here where during a pin, Nicole was supposed to help put Layla's leg on the rope, which failed, and it kind of hurt the match a little bit. This leads this leads to Kelly and Tiffany taking out Michelle, but then just like that, Layla rolls her up to retain the title. Quick match here. They only go under 4 minutes, just barely under 4 minutes, shorter than the one earlier. But hey, like we mentioned earlier, we don't have to get into it like we did earlier. Different time, different treatment. Meltzer gave it a half star. What did you think about this one?
Yeah, like I think you said, the women's division was not treated like it is now. I didn't really mind Lay Cool. I thought it was actually more of an interesting gimmick or storyline in the PG era. I mean, they were pretty good heels. Michelle McCool and Layla, they of course tore the belt apart, so they were the co-women's champions. And Kelly was okay, I guess, in the ring. She was nothing special, but when you're giving 3.5 minutes to do a match, how are you supposed to prove anything, right? But it was an okay match. I guess it's not memorable. Nothing around the women's division at this time was. Much like the tag team match, it was kind of a throwaway, which is a shame on pay-per-views that you're having throwaway matches. Why are you having throwaway matches on pay-per-views? Just like the ECW title match at SummerSlam. Why? But that's why ratings are down. There you go. There's your answer on to why less people watch and less people went. But no, that's just I'm very, very critical of the way the women's division was treated in 2010 and before that. But whatever, half star from Metzler, of course he's going to give it that. Any women's match, I guess, gets under a star. I guess that's his gimmick, the heat. But yet a tag team match that lasted only a minute longer than these two matches gets two, and I don't get it. Don't get the logic there, but whatever.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying there, definitely. But now we move to another bright spot of the show. We've got the second Money in the Bank match coming from Raw, where we see Randy Orton, U.S. champion, The Miz, very young Miz here. Mark Henry, we have the $1 million champion, Ted DiBiase Jr., which I forgot that title was around at this time, who's accompanied by Maurice, who plays a part in the match, John Morrison, Chris Jericho, Evan Bourne. Holy crap, what a throwback that was. And Edge take part in this match. They go about 20.5 minutes here after Miz throws Orton off the ladder to grab that briefcase. At one point, Mark Henry would just about leave a skid mark on that boy, The Miz. That's a reference Kyle and I will get, sorry. Evan Bourne, looking at this match, Evan Bourne had what I consider to be what I thought of as the Shelton Benjamin role. And what I mean by this is that he's not the favorite, but you have to watch out for him to do some crazy shit in there. You could say the same about John Morrison as well, but he kind of had a little more of a perceived chance to maybe be a world champion around this time. He was just very over and was a star at this time. What else here? At one point, which plays a good part in this, Maurice comes into the ring when everyone is laid out to climb the ladder, but Morrison would carry her down. There were points throughout the match where the crowd was thinking Bourne and Orton had it. And you could see, that moment in Money in the Bank matches where sort of the crowd's just starting to all stand up as they climb the ladder, like, oh, here it comes. Which is always fun. They're into it. But another overall great, fun Money in the Bank match. It was fun seeing old faces here and current faces who we still see in some form in wrestling today. Of course, we know The Miz would cash in, spoiler alert, months later after Survivor Series, which I'm not going to say if he was successful for those who don't know, but you probably know, which was just after Survivor Series, which when we get there, maybe we could do a little Raw watch along for that one, because that one's a big episode at this time. Miz cashes in, but we'll see. At any rate, Meltzer gives it 4 stars, same exact as the SmackDown one. 4 stars is the theme of the show. Afterwards, Miz cuts a typical cocky heel promo about how he did it and proved the crowd wrong. What do you think about this second match of the evening for Money in the Bank?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with the rating here. Once again, I think it's a solid 4-star Money in the Bank ladder match. I think it actually was quite similar to the first match, the first ladder match of the pay-per-view. I think that you had your solid mix of veterans like Chris Jericho and Edge. Randy Orton was in the match, right?
Double check. Yes, he was. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I forgot. I don't know why I forgot about Orton, but I have like 7 names written down who was in it. But yeah, of course you had your solid veterans, Chris Jericho, Edge, and Randy Orton. You had some younger guys like The Miz at the time was actually pretty young, John Morrison, Evan Bourne, and even Ted DiBiase. And then you had the muscle of the match, Mark Henry. You always got to have that one muscle, the guy that can slam and jam and cram and wham everybody. And it was a lot of fun,
Okay.
definitely. It was a fun ladder match. It really, I think, boosted the Miz's career. It led him to become a main eventer for the first time in his career. It kind of broke him away from the mid card scene. I think going into this match, I mean, a couple of favorites probably would have been Chris Jericho and Edge. I mean, they were both the World Heavyweight Champion prior to this. They had exchanged the title. Edge had not been world champion, but he did win the Royal Rumble this year. Jericho had been the world champion, and that's it. I don't believe there's any other former world champions in this match. Mark Henry had not been world heavyweight champion yet. Ted DiBiase, Randy Orton, of course, but I think he's coming off of his heel run with the Legacy. Legacy had disbanded not too far before this, so that's pretty much where he was at. And then, like you said, Evan Bourne. And I agree with that Evan Bourne statement. Shelton Benjamin was, again, actually a perfect example to that because Shelton Benjamin was always featured in Money in the Bank matches. And, when it first started, he was the guy that would jump. I think, actually, when the top 10 Money in the Bank moments that they just did at Money in the Bank, which I think the top 10 moments it was like 4 of them were like from 2019. So I don't really get how that list is relevant. But Shelton Benjamin was featured in one of them. I believe the 2006 Money in the Bank ladder match. He was featured. So that's a pretty cool throwback reference there to Shelton Benjamin. I think that's what Evan Bourne and even probably Kofi Kingston was used for too, and Dolph Ziggler. And, they're the typical mid-card guys that never won the match but were always featured prominently in it. And I think The Miz could have been one of them guys, but him actually winning it was cool. Like you said, the finish was fantastic. The promo afterward was cool from The Miz. And now we have the WWE Championship match. Let's go ahead and talk about that, Joe. Steel Cage.
Absolutely. It's time for Steel Cage main event. As we gave you the background for how we got here earlier. Sheamus the champion. Cena comes out first with a huge pop, followed by the champ himself, Lobster Head Sheamus. Some notable spots here. Saw Cena on the top rope. Instead of climbing over the cage and winning, he instead attempts an avalanche, I guess you'd call it, 5-knuckle shuffle, and fails miserably. And of course, we cannot fail to mention the Nexus's interference. There were a lot of young stars in that group, and that really brought back a lot of memories seeing all of them. Anyhow, the ref goes down here, and Cena then taps out Sheamus, but no ref to see it. Members of the stable of Nexus climb the cage and go after both members of the match, but mostly Cena. They focus mostly on him. They then catch Sheamus climbing on the other side, but it's too late. Sheamus hits the floor to win, and he immediately runs off after about 23 minutes of action here. Long match. Meltzer gave this title bout 3 stars. I thought it was a typical cage match, and unlike my typical Money in the Bank match comment, I don't mean that really as a compliment. There was really nothing too special to me. I thought that the Nexus interference was really the main part of this. It was just, other than that, it was like a house show cage match that you see all the time. But I'm biased. I've never been a huge fan of cage matches for whatever reason. The screw finish was both cool, but it was kind of annoying to see happen. It was just all right match to me. Afterwards, Cena goes crazy, absolutely ballistic, attacking the members of Nexus. Of course, they're continuing to build here towards the Team WWE versus Nexus match at SummerSlam the next month, which I'm excited to get to whenever we do. What did you think about this match overall, Kyle?
Yeah, what a fitting way to end the Money in the Bank ladder match pay-per-view with a steel cage match. That's fitting, all right. Yeah, John Cena versus Sheamus here. Sheamus, if I'm not mistaken, was in his second reign as WWE champion. He had won the championship late in 2009 at TLC. Remember when John Cena actually made a mistake, went through the table, Sheamus is champion.
Yeah.
He would end up losing it not too far after, but he ultimately ended up regaining it, like you said prior. Well, I don't know if you said it, but he won a fatal four-way pay-per-view, or did he? Yeah. Yep. And yes, he did, and he defended it successfully here today, or this pay-per-view in 2010 at Money in the Bank against John Cena. And in my opinion, the most polarizing rivalry, the most exciting storyline in 2010 was the Nexus. They were so much fun. We had NXT in 2010. Yes, NXT was not what it used to be. It was a reality-based show, a competition. Wade Barrett ended up winning that, and then all of his NXT rookie teammates or whatever ended up being his big stable known as the Nexus. I mean, we've seen many great faces in the Nexus. And of course, the original Nexus. I mean, I'm not going to go over every name, but you had like Slater, and you had Michael Tarver, who created the
Daniel Bryan.
Yes, Daniel Bryan was a Nexus member for like one day.
Yes.
Justin Gabriel, the list goes on with that. David Otunga, of course, he was married to somebody at the time. Jennifer Hudson. So that's a fun fact for who doesn't know. I think
he's a lawyer too. Did you know that?
Yeah, he's also a lawyer. Yes, for sure. But anyways, talking more about the match, I think you're pretty much hit the nail on the head a couple times here. I think it was a typical standard steel cage match to end the pay-per-view. It really reminded me more of a steel cage match that you would see at a house show. I think that the ending was kind of cool with the Nexus coming out, continuing their feud. But yeah, ultimately their main target was John Cena. They did not want John Cena to become WWE champion, but they didn't want anybody to become WWE champion. They wanted to cause chaos whatever way they could. That was their ultimate goal. So they came out, they interfered in the WWE title match, but like you said, they let Sheamus slip away. They let that big 6'6" Celtic warrior, they just let him slip away. I guess he's too tiny and fast. They just couldn't get to him. But I think that's why it was probably 3 stars due to a little bit of a screwy finish. It didn't really get your bro kick or your high cross array, which it was a fun finisher. I remember that he used to use the high cross when he would put the guy over his head and just like it was kind of similar
like the Razor's Edge. Yeah,
but he stopped doing it. He brought in the bro kick, which I guess the bro kick is cool, but I really like the high cross finisher when he would do that. But this was really the beginning more of the feud than the end. I believe that they debuted on June the 4th, 2010, I think, because I've watched that video. So I don't know if that date's accurate. Don't take that date, but it was somewhere in June.
Come on, you're supposed to know this.
Yeah, but it was somewhere in June that the Nexus debuted, and I do know that they stopped around November. Their original run, they became the new Nexus after November. So 2010 was for sure the year of the Nexus. But this match was an okay main event. I just think that the screwy finish makes it 3 stars. I'd probably give it maybe more. I think it was better than the world title match, personally. I would probably give it like 3.5, 3 3/4. But yeah, the end afterwards, Cena he just went crazy. He was clotheslines and attitude adjustments and a bunch of different stuff happened. Cena was everywhere, taking them all out. And yeah. But for sure, it was good stuff. A good pay-per-view, a very, very good. But there was no cash-in because Sheamus got away. So Miz could not make it 2 for 2 in the night, even though Joe said that he catches in November. So that took that away. But the Miz did not show up. Even though I think the commentators probably mentioned it. Oh, I hope the Miz comes out. No, I hope not. I don't want the Miz out there. What's he got to do out there? But yeah, it was a fun. That's all I can say. I think Money in the Bank was a good, solid pay-per-view, and it really established it was the greatest Money in the Bank pay-per-view in history at the time.
I was going to say that. I was definitely going to reference that. The biggest card, the best card in history.
Stacked.
But yeah, definitely. And when Cena was going ballistic, kind of reminded me of his, feud with Undertaker, where he ended Raw going, ugh. And that was a big meme at the time. But that's it. We have I think we might have gone an hour at this point. We're about there. I haven't timed it. But damn, I was not expecting to go that long. But we got some good stuff here. Before we go, Kyle's messing with his camera. Before we go, we got to do what we did last week, which I thought was fun, where you are going to go ahead and grade this. What did you think? Did you give it a thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle, 2 up, 2 down? What's your rating here, Kyle? 2 in the middle. What did you think based on that scale?
I'm going to give it about a thumbs up and a half. So almost 2 thumbs way up. I'm going to give it like a 1.5, which I would think I would base that on a letter grade, probably about a B+. I think that the championship matches were very, very good. I think that the cash-in was very, very good as well. I think that was something that I think this was a groundbreaking pay-per-view for a couple of reasons. One, I think it proved to WWE fans and WWE themselves, hey, we can put it on a pay-per-view that's based off ladder matches. I think, 2, that it established the Nexus a lot and it, further developed them. I think a couple things missing. There were no mid-card championship matches. The United States nor Intercontinental Champion was featured. I don't know who the United States Champion was at the time, though.
It was The Miz. So when he won it,
that's
he was.
Right. Yeah, The Miz was U.S. champion. That's right. Okay. So The Miz, U.S. champion, won the Money in the Bank, so he was not featured in the championship match, which I guess is okay because he won the Money in the Bank, and of course, Kofi Kingston, Intercontinental Champion, was in the Money in the Bank ladder match. So neither mid-card title was featured, which I guess that's okay because you have 2 ladder matches that are featuring 8 guys a match. So that's 16 superstars just taken up for just 2 matches. I think the tag team title match could have been a little bit better. I think the women's matches could have been a little bit better, and I think that there were no other prominent matches that were just a few matches. But like I said, 16 superstars taken up in 2 matches, it's kind of hard to fill up the card with other matches. And these pay-per-views back in 2010 weren't 4 hours like they are nowadays, so you can't have an 11-match card with 3 pre-show matches. And, but I do think that if I would give it a star rating, probably about a 4-star out of 5 pay-per-view, a B+, and about a thumb up and a half towards 2 thumbs. It's close, but a solid pay-per-view, a B+ pay-per-view, not an A, but it's close to it, and I think it was very, very enjoyable overall. Joe, how about your rating on Money in the Bank 2010?
I'm pretty much in agreement with you with what you're saying. Yeah, I'd probably say a thumbs up. I'm not going to be all fancy and say, oh, and a half. But it was, I thought it was a great pay-per-view overall. There was definitely some low spots, like the women's matches. Once again, we discussed why. Come on. We're not sexist, brother. But other than that, maybe the tag team title match, which was just okay. Nothing, those were the low spots, but the ladder matches themselves, the title matches, especially to me, the World Heavyweight title. I know you said you disagree. I thought the World title was better. Either way, those 4 matches made the pay-per-view, in my opinion. So yeah, I'd say a thumbs up pretty much. Definitely an overall great pay-per-view. Definitely good to look back on. Some cool moments there. Jack Swagger yelled at his mom. It was amazing. But stop it, Percy. But we're gonna go ahead and leave because we're out of time this week. We hope you enjoyed the show. Yeah, we're on a time limit. We're off the air now. The network, YouTube executives are messaging us saying, you got to go home. It's done. We hope you enjoyed the show this week. And looking back on Money in the Bank 2010, and we hope you join us where we will be covering something next time we join you. Hopefully next Thursday. At this point, it looks like every other Thursday, but we'll have it sorted and let you guys know what we're covering and when. But it's definitely going to be on a Thursday. We'll post it over on Twitter at PGAirPod, where you can follow us and keep in touch if you'd like, as soon as we know. But that's going to do it. this week on the PG Era podcast.